Okay, we'll just give it a minute or so for all attendees to join before we start. Right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today on influencer marketing. We've got over 50 or so attendees, and I hope you're all looking forward to what I'm sure is going to be a very interesting and informative discussion. I'll quickly introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. I'm Tara Muniz, General Manager of MPRCA Southeast Asia. MPRCA is the world's largest professional PR body. We represent over 35,000 PR professionals in 70 countries worldwide. In 2018, we launched in Singapore and also have offices in London, Dubai, and Buenos Aires. Now, while the session's going on, please feel free to place any questions or comments in the Q&A box, which the moderator will address at the end of the session. And also a recording of the event will be available on Friday, and the link will be sent to all attendees. So this morning, we've got a great line up of speakers who will dive into the different branches of influencer marketing, the reasons behind the rise, the impact it has on businesses, and more. Moderating today's panel is Matthew Briant. Matthew is Chief Client Officer at Hill+Knowlton Strategies Asia and the MD of Hill+Knowlton Strategies Singapore. He has over 12 years experience in Singapore, working with media, agency, and client organizations. Matthew has been instrumental in growing the business to include global brands such as Spotify, Salesforce, SLR, into H&K's portfolio of regional clients. As head of H&K's Innovation and Creative Studio in Asia, Matthew was instrumental in launching H&K's Executive Podcast Suite in Singapore and also built H&K's Made to Measure offering. And I'll briefly introduce you to our speakers today before passing you over to Matthew. Our first speaker is Nicole Lee. Nicole is a regional creative lead at Collab Asia, where she oversees their brand partnerships team in delivering influencer marketing campaigns for clients across APAC. And these clients include Warner Music, Spotify, and Agoda. Having been a producer for 12 years and once an influencer herself, Nicole's creative acumen and strong knowledge of the influencer landscape in APAC gives her a holistic view of each campaign, from creative concepting and ideation through to execution and measurement. On the panel, we also have Raena Lim. Raena is the COO and co-founder of Style Theory. Now, coming from a finance background, Raena's move from finance into the startup space was fueled by her desire and passion to build something from scratch and make a direct impact in the causes that she believes in, and in particular, sustainability and mindful consumption. Style Theory is Southeast Asia's largest circular fashion platform that offers women the opportunity to build their infinite wardrobe in an affordable, convenient, and sustainable manner. Having worked with influencers on a one-off basis, as well as long-term ambassadors, Raena has real-world experience as to the value they can offer when wielded effectively as part of the marketing mix have on business. Raena oversees brand and content marketing, new business development, people operations, and market expansion, as well as leading the culture and vision for the Style Theory teams across the region. Our third speaker today is Jeremy Seow. He's the MD for APAC for Allison+Partners. Now, Jeremy is a seasoned marketing and comms leader with extensive experience in strategic comms, digital marketing, and corporate strategy. With close to 20 years working with tech and healthcare brands, he's worked on comms programs such as executive visibility, thought leadership, enterprise storytelling, and product marketing. Notable brands that he's worked with include Lenovo, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Johnson & Johnson. Last but not least, on today's panel, we have Sophie Crowther, and Sophie is the Senior Influencer Marketing Manager at Media Monks. Sophie has 7 years experience in influencer marketing across APAC, US, and EMEA markets. She first came to Singapore to create from scratch and evangelize a talent agnostic model for a social agency. Now, with over 3 years experience in APAC, she recently joined Media Monk Singapore, also S4 Capital, to help build up and out a new influencer team for APAC. Now I'm going to pass you over to Matthew and over to the panel, who are going to dive right into the topic for today. Over to you, Matthew.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tara. Yes, and welcome everyone to this interesting discussion on the rise of influencer marketing across the region. As Tara mentioned, we've got some fantastic people here to have that discussion with varying kind of perspectives on everything that we want to cover. So just to kick it off, guys, let's just kind of address that question straight on. So, influencer marketing has become a line item on many marketing plans of late and for a few years now. So I just want to kind of address as to why we think that is. And Nicole, I'd like to kind of go to you first, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi everybody. Okay, the rise of influencer marketing. Look, I think working with influencers is sometimes easier than the traditional sense of working, let's say, with celebrities. Sometimes you don't have to go through the agent, the management. I think sometimes it does get a little bit complicated when you work with the traditional actress or singer. It is tentatively cheaper, I'd say, for brands, depending on what kind of influencers you do engage. Of course, there are the influencers that are, have 1 million followers on Instagram and they're charging an arm and a leg for a photo, but there are also micro influencers, which are just as impactful. And there is a authenticity, I think, now I think consumers tend to really relate when they find an influencer that they see on, or they follow on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, that they tend to relate more than, let's say, I don't know, Julia Roberts. Am I too old to say Julia Roberts, or there younger actresses to name? But I think there's that authenticity when an influencer says, oh, I really like this moisturizer that I really like to use. And I mean, I'm definitely a victim of that. I tend to do that as well. So I think there are definitely different things to think about when it comes to why influencer marketing is such a success now.
Brilliant. And Raena, from your perspective, owning a brand, working and building a brand, how do you see that role kind of growing within your organization, within your areas of priority?
Yeah, so actually from a business perspective, I mean, we are not very attached to any one marketing channel. So for us, it's really like what works and what's our objective at any one point. So I think when we first started, influencer was actually a strategy for us, because we find that the way that they tell the story, especially for the ones who truly bought into what we were trying to do at the very beginning when we were building this crazy cloud wardrobe, that no one has heard of before. How could you rent your day-to-day clothes? But these influencers, they really bought into the idea of fashion sustainability and having that infinite wardrobe, that sharing economy wardrobe. And they sold our story so much more convincing that, we could have ever done through any kind of like paid advertisements. I don't think we could come up with a creative that would be good enough to really be able to tell that behind the scenes story of what we are really trying to bring to life. I think that was the first time we interacted with influencers, and from then onwards, I think our relationship with influencers has also changed over the years. So I think we realized that some are really good at storytelling. Some are very good at, styling the clothes and making them look so versatile in all kinds of situations. So we started to engage influencers differently across the years, depending on what their skill sets are and where they are more informed on, whether is it style or is it more on financial, how can partnering with Style Theory actually bring financial savings for their followers. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Jeremy, some brands are still a little bit skeptical to kind of jump into influencer marketing. Can you share with us your thoughts on why you think that might be?
Thanks, Matt. It's an interesting time, right? I mean, just the points Nicole and Raena said before me, influencer marketing has definitely come a long way. And I could say it's probably gone a lot more mainstream. I do think that there's been a little bit of skepticism from brands when it comes to really trying to understand how do you measure influencer programs. But I do think that what I'm seeing in the last 5 years, the three missing pieces of the puzzles are coming together, something that we've spoken about in this group before as well. The three elements that are coming together is, can you find great ways with influencer marketing to create great content? And I think content creators have really addressed that part of that puzzle. Element number one, which is about content. Element number two, can we measure these influencer programs better than ever before? I think that with technology, Matt, you and I have talked about the necessary technology and the plugins that we can kind of feel that influencer program that has becoming a lot more accessible than ever before. The last piece is, can we manage them at scale? You know, I'm joined on the call today with brands and firms that are able to do that at scale as well. We work with some of our influencer marketing partners to do that at scale. And I think once these three elements really come together, which I think 2 out of the 3 are already there, right? I do think that is where it's going to drive more brands, you know, to come in. And sorry for the long answer, but probably one more point I probably want to add, Matt, is that the fact that, you know, as comms agencies typically sitting at the intersection between sales and marketing and brand and reputation, we had the chance to really look at how this is coming together, right? Whether it's the earned space or the paid space. And I think that's all coming together. It's about, if there's anything, I'm really excited that influencer marketing has really gone past all the silos between marketing and sales or communications, reputation, really becoming something that all functions and all disciplines on the client side are beginning to embrace as well. So I think when you start thinking about the elements that bring influencer marketing together and how brands are approaching it, I think it's definitely something that will continue to convince more brands and more clients to take that on.
No, I completely agree. And I think that, you know, it's become a very fast moving kind of landscape. Sophie, could you kind of share with us a little bit of your thoughts of your favorite platforms to kind of work with influencers on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you say, like, the industry is always evolving. There's always a new platform that's coming up. But I think for us, what we are finding to be the most effective is kind of the old favorites, which is actually Instagram works incredibly well still. It has, you know, some of the most accessible formats that are much easier for consumers to go out of Instagram, importantly for brands. So Instagram stories is great. It's cost effective. You have the swipe up feature for, you know, majority of talent that can do that. There are elements within that format, which means that you can just encourage more engagement. It makes it much more of a two-way conversation, like the poll function or the questions function. All that stuff is very intuitive for our audience and our consumers to be a part of. So Instagram, definitely, and especially having the clickable tags, clickable links, link in a bio, that's great. YouTube is still very effective when it comes to telling longer stories. I think, you know, that is, whilst it's more expensive, if, you know, there is still huge value in having those, you know, over 10-minute, 20-minute, now 30-40-minute long episodic things that these really talented creators are doing, which tell a longer story, that have a longer description. And again, it's very easy to send people out of YouTube and onto a brand's platform. So the ability to convert, I would say, from YouTube and Instagram is definitely the healthiest. And then, yeah, you kind of see whilst I think everyone is so excited about TikTok, and I love TikTok, we're all really excited by it, it's still kind of one of the hardest to work with sponsored content, because I'm sure everyone on this call has come up against it, but generally if you've got hashtag ad or a branded tag in the caption that isn't an official branded hashtag challenge or something with TikTok, chances are the algorithm are going to push it straight down. But then you can't not have hashtag ad in the caption, so it's a real trade-off. So yeah, that is my very lengthy answer for that question.
I think it's good. It's a good answer, and it helps us kind of move into the area of ethics as well, and you know, creative freedom when working with influencers. Nicole, could you share a little bit about, you know, what it is that pushes clients to offer more freedom when it comes to influencers and drive their creative agenda with someone else kind of at the helm?
Sure. I mean, it's always like a tough call, right? I think especially on our end, I mean, we deal with both clients and we also want to take care of our creators at Collab Asia. So with brands, I think they definitely need to consider the creativity of the creator. If they have chosen that creator for that particular campaign and they like what they see, they need to trust the creativity and trust the process. If they have over 100,000 subscribers or followers, then they're definitely doing something right. So in that same right, creators must also respect the client as well. And as this is, you know, it's sort of a new way of marketing, I suppose. Not completely new, but I guess a strays away from traditional marketing. There's no concrete rule book. So working with agencies like ourselves or, you know, other agencies around it helps to find that sort of middle ground between creator and client. And we always want to make sure that we're trying to find that balance as well to keep things fair. But we've definitely had some instances where the client or the creator is sort of diva-ing out, I guess you can call it that. But again, you know, every campaign is different. And I think that's kind of where our area of expertise is helpful. But I am very much for, again, I guess it's sort of in what I do, I'm very much for creativity. And I think we have to also be fair to that.
Raena, is it easy to let go and kind of put the onus of the creative outcome in the hands of people that don't work for your organization?
Well, I think the vetting process is very important, and that's something that we learn across the years as well. I mean, obviously, we have worked with some that we find not as professional as they could be, but I think overall, the first thing you look at is really as them as creators, as talent, right? And all of them have their own stories to tell, and some are like stronger in certain areas, some are like really good at the lifestyle part of it, and some are just really relatable. So I think once you get to know who they are and what they can bring to the table, then you will be also able to understand how you can work with them. So I think that's the difference between, like, say, paid digital marketing on Facebook, right? Where you can just toggle a few things and be like, oh, look at like clients, and then you know, this age I want to target people at Shenton Way or whatever. So it's very data driven. But with this, there's an element of understanding that person, because that relatability is going to be what's going to be the most important when they are actually telling your story. So when we do find those people, we actually trust them completely. So we actually let go and let them tell the story. We just give them like, these are the key things that we want to talk about. We want to highlight. Maybe it's a new designer, local designer that we have brought in. We really want to showcase their talent. So we brought in influencers to help us tell that story. But there are times where we also micromanage when we realize that some of these influencers might be a bit younger and very enthusiastic, and they love the brand a lot. But giving them a little bit of a guideline, like, okay, these are the things that, you know, you don't say, you don't talk about promos and stuff like that, because that's not the main point of this thing. Even though we do give them some level of promos, should they want to do it as incentive to their followers. So
yeah, brilliant. And I think, yeah, there's two sides to the coin, right? So if you get it right, then everyone feels like they've had enough input into the process and they've got the most out of it. Jeremy, from an agency perspective, are there processes that you can put in place to kind of help that journey take shape?
Matt, it's a good question. I think the whole concept of having another person tell your brand story is not new to PR companies. You know, we've really worked with news outlets and journalists to bring that story across. I think that, and I like to also bring a point what Nicole said and what Raena said as well. I think the vetting process has definitely gotten a lot more sophisticated in recent years. You know, today where we consult our clients is we look at both sides of the coin, right? One is the creator that's able to tell that story in a real and authentic manner, right? But on the other side of the coin, we definitely gotten a lot more sophisticated in looking under the hood of the creators' audiences and who are the people that follow this creator, the lookalike audiences, the similar kind of passion points that they're in. And I think that when we take a data-led approach, I think Raena, you talk about data-led approach. So when we look at it from a data-led approach, we are able to present our clients two sides of the same coin. You know, a real person that can deliver that story authentically, and the other side is the audience that can consume that eagerly and enthusiastically. And I think that's a big part of where we're coming today, right? And the ability to connect the art and the science. And getting a third party to do that, once you figure out the art and the science and how you bring it together, the management process has been typically, well, sorts itself out. So if there's anything that's clear today, it's, you know, we have the right tools to be able to do that vetting process effectively and at scale, and to present our clients with the right options. And then from there, you know, I don't think we find it difficult to have a third party kind of manage that storytelling. But yeah, I mean, that's how I think it's a lot more involved. And then from there, it's really about getting the right story authentically to the right audience at the right time in the right channel and the right platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the types of relationship are also evolving, right? I think, Sophie, if you could touch on a little bit about working with influencers, both non-exclusively versus exclusively, and what that means for a brand and essentially the outcomes of the initiative.
Yeah, so I mean, me personally in particular, I have worked with talent in all kinds of different ways, both exclusively working with talent on a 360 basis, managing them, and now kind of moving into this more talent agnostic approach. And we find at Media Monks that especially as the industry just does continue to evolve constantly, and new talent are coming up all the time, and there seems to be a better payoff, and just everyone just has a better time from what we find anyway in this kind of non-exclusive setting, in the, you know, we do everything in our power to, whenever we're proposing talent to a brand, it will only ever be the right talent for that brand. We're not under any obligation to put forward our own in-house roster. What that also means is that we have spent years building up a network of very trusted partners all around the world, who do look after talent exclusively, but who we trust and we work with all the time. But it just means that it's far more cherry picked and tailored and specific to what our clients want. So again, this kind of ties back into this vetting process that we're all talking about, which is completely crucial. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You do have to put in that due diligence right from the beginning. And for us as well, it isn't just the data. We have whole very human teams putting on a more qualitative data approach as well as the quantitative. So we look at things like the audience sentiment. Have there been any competitor affiliations? Have they done anything controversial in the news? Is there anything that's going to put the brand into disrepute? And like crucially, is the influencer's values aligned with the brand's values? Because that also then ends up, is it going to be an authentic partnership? And just to kind of circle back to this non-exclusive versus exclusive, I guess the risk is that, or the benefit of the way that we do things and in that non-exclusive way, is that we can do all that due diligence, and we are very confident that whomever we're putting forward and working with in that non-exclusive way is right for this brand. And I think it works both ways as well for the talent too. Like they hopefully look at us as people, as an agency, but of people, me and our team, we're constantly the faces of the campaigns, and our aim is to always build up really strong, trusted relationships with them. And you know what? We become the face of good opportunity, experiences, and money, and they get to say yes or no at the end of the day. They don't have to take everything that we give them, just as we don't have to work with every talent because they're in our network. So yeah, I think there's lots of benefits, but then on the flip side, I know Nicole at Collab Asia, like you do it both sides, right? And we've worked together in the past, so yeah, I think you would probably have a slightly different take on this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, to be fair, all the creators that are in our network are actually non-exclusive, but
right, okay.
We do always prioritize whenever we do have a client come to us for something. Obviously, our priority is to think of our creators first.
Yeah.
But because of that non-exclusivity, I think, look, we also have to think about that. I think Raena, you also mentioned that a lot of these creators are still quite young.
Yeah.
And I think they decided to create an Instagram account or a YouTube account because they wanted to create something, and they just, even though we do think about it as a business per se, but YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, they're all just platforms free to use, right? So we want to make sure that our creators don't feel so binded when, we come to them with something. We're not saying, look, you really have to do this, just like you were saying, right? They have the right to say, nah, I don't think it's for me. I don't really feel comfortable with this brand.
Yeah.
But this, in that same sense, we also give a choice to our clients, and, we make sure that, hey, these are the creators that we're working with, but we also don't limit that selection for our brand, for our clients. Like if they want to work with a creator that they've seen and they're like, can you reach out to this creator for me? We can also do that. But I think just as you were saying, because we don't really have that binding sort of thing, there are the other agencies that also do the whole exclusive thing, and it works for them, and I think that's fine. I just think for us, we also want to be mindful that the creator also feels that freedom, and they're not like,
Totally.
oh, something that I loved doing because I wanted to create this Instagram account for my own creative freedom. Yeah. We don't want them to feel like it's a job all of a sudden, you know? Yeah.
And you can feel it when you're having the calls with them and giving them the brief if they want to do it. And if it feels like it's just, you know, a bit of, you know, some monthly income for them, then that's kind of a bit of a red flag as well. So having these non-exclusive relationships means you have more choice, and it means you can have these introductory calls and really feel each other out. And again, it works both ways. Like the talent, you know, they'll hear the brief and they can say, yeah, this isn't for me, just as we could have that conversation with them. And if, you know, they weren't giving us much, or, you know, it wasn't what we were hoping for, then we don't have to continue the conversation necessarily. So yeah, it's that freedom and choice that I think is really, really valuable.
Raena, I know from our previous discussion, you've had a lot of experience working on one-off initiatives with influencers. At what point does that trickle over into a longer-term relationship, and when do they become ambassadors, or do they become ambassadors in your case?
So we always start with working one-off with them, and actually, at the very beginning, I mean, I tend to be a bit more idealistic. I really like for them to kind of like experience the product. So we kind of like structure the way that we compensate them mostly on the product, so more on bartering than on like monetary compensation. And I think for subsequent, if we find that someone is really, they really love the product for what it is, you know, they're able to help us tell the story, and we can see how they can actually use their talent in certain ways, whether is it to talk about the styling element, or is it to talk about the environmental element. And then I think that's when we think about like, how can we engage someone like that to help us to constantly tell the story in their own narrative. So then that's when we convert someone to more of an ambassador, and we actually work with them for years. So I think over the past 5 years, we work with over 200 different influencers. So mostly on a one-off basis, but there's a good number of them on like a very recurring basis, almost like quarterly. You'll see that they will talk about us. And sometimes it's not even us engaging them to do so, but them doing it as part of their lifestyle already. I think also on talent, we have seen quite a shift in the way they're managing their own account and content. So I think 5 years ago, when we work with some of the influencers, there's a very common mistake where they might kind of post something about you, and then the next day they post something about your competitor. So then you'll start wondering, are you really genuinely like, you know, liking my product? And I think that that to me is a telltale sign whether someone is just doing it for money and telling you whatever you want to hear, or do they genuinely like stand behind what you stand for. But I think right now, I think the influencers that we're seeing, they are a lot more developed. They understand a lot more of who they are, what they stand for, what they want to do. And I think when we have conversations with them, it starts to progress into like, oh, okay, this is how my lifestyle is going to change. This is how I'm going to be able to influence a lot more people. This is what I want to tell about your brand. And sometimes these are the things that it's not from us, but from them. And I think that's when you see that beauty in that partnership, of a long-term partnership. Yeah.
And does that give you room to kind of have different discussions around remuneration in terms of, you know, if you're going to look at a contract over 12 months, let's say, are there new levels of remuneration that could be unlocked in those circumstances?
Yeah, actually, it's really funny. We were just talking about it today. Like, you know, we kind of like still pay them on like ongoing basis. Every time a post is up, or like, you know, we want them to come down for an event and stuff like that. But I think right now we're thinking, should we build like an ambassador program where, you know, they could have a stable income from actually working directly with us on a consistent basis. So I think we're still twinkering with that. I think, yeah, we're still researching, you know, figuring out what's the market standard on some of these things. But definitely I do see that progressing in the long run, because they become part of your company, and it's very hard to just disassociate that anymore. Yeah.
And Jem, I think you mentioned it earlier, a lot of that would ride on measurability and being able to measure performance in a world that's changing quite regularly with algorithms and lots of things that kind of pop up out of the blue. Can you just share your thoughts on measurement and how we can try and compare apples to apples across initiatives?
I'll tell you what, Matt, I think it's a question that I think we spend quite a fair bit of time, right? Even prior to this call talking about, and it's definitely an interesting one. I'm really optimistic and excited about the fact that clients are now a lot more sophisticated when they look at measurement. When we look at some of the platforms being access to consumption data, it's a big part. Being able to look at audience and how they react to that content, that's a big thing as well. I'm also seeing the fact that influencers are a lot more open for co-partnerships and co-creation types of programs where it's discount codes and link backs and all that has been a big part of it. So I think that it probably needs to look at it in three areas, right? The base level is this influencer telling an authentic story that just hits home all your corporate key messages, your brand key messages? And that's one. And I think that is important. The next layer that we look at is it consumed by the right audience within that influencer? And I think we can begin to see that. And third is, when it comes to the really lower end of the funnel, where is this influencer trying to drive the traffic, trying to drive that leads into your site, right? I think that's a big part as well. And I think that it's a great thing, right? That because influencer marketing has gone beyond just the silos of the marketing organization within a brand or communications silo within a brand, all these conversations are being serviced up within a brand. And so being able to look at it holistically from communications and storytelling to demand gen and sales, and the rest is, how we drive some advocacy in our products. It's a good way to look at it. So it wouldn't have happened if I would think both functions within most brands didn't really look at influencer marketing as something that can solve both sides of their problems. And I think it's great that brand marketers and communicators are able to look at it today.
On that topic of measurement, Sophie, I know that you guys have some proprietary platforms that you utilize to optimize in real time and make various changes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have our own in-house platform that helps us do basically the entire end-to-end process. I think we all are in agreement here that data and tracking, setting KPIs, setting goals from the beginning is all completely crucial. So yeah, we have very strict processes in place, which means that we have our in-house platform, so we can measure everything, report on everything, and all in real time. But it also means that, yeah, we set KPIs and goals with our client at the very beginning so that it's very clear whether or not our campaign is going to be a success, because there is no one size fits all what is a successful campaign. We have to set those boundaries right from the get-go. And yeah, the way that we look at it is very much we try and look at it in quite a holistic way. And so that, as the campaign is going and is live, we very much want to avoid, getting to the very end of the campaign and doing a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas of what could, if we didn't hit our KPIs. Whereas having access to proprietary platforms or just being on it, like visibly, how is it going in real time, so that you can make very quick decisions about how you can solve things, or does it mean if we're not meeting our KPIs, does this mean we need to be creating some additional assets, or should we be putting a little bit aside for some paid boosting to help us get some more eyeballs on the content? And algorithms can sometimes not exactly be in our favor, so this also really helps us with that as well. I think some of the platforms can kind of decide on a whim whether or not they're going to change an algorithm or not, and you can't really plan for that. All you can do is be managing your campaign effectively as it's going, and amending it, changing it, evolving it as it goes. So yeah, that's kind of our take on it, is doing it in that way.
Algorithms can definitely be tricky things. I know from early years in my social media career, having grand plans for these kind of measurements that we were going to track from year to year, and then all of a sudden algorithm change goes, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Man, you're revealing your age. I think should.
I did say social
I would agree
media,
with you, but I wouldn't say it out loud. So yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate that. Nicole, could you just share a little bit more from your perspective on measurement and how to best kind of approach it, really, to make sure that algorithms don't trip you up?
Sure. I think very similar to Sophie, and again, because Sophie has mentioned, we have worked with each other before, very similar to how they do things. We also really set our goals and objectives from the beginning with our clients, and we like to make sure from the start, what is your objective? What is your goal? What do you want out of this campaign? And we are quite transparent. Usually, if a client's KPI is a ridiculous ask, I want to gain X amount of followers in 3 weeks, then we're going to be quite transparent about it. We don't want to make any false promises, because in the end, we get in trouble. It's not, they're not calling the creators in the end, telling them that, hey, you didn't do the work or anything like that. But similar to Sophie, we do have our own internal tools, and we have dedicated teams to take care of this. Obviously the client we are the face of the company, and we go out and speak to the clients and everything, but we do have dedicated teams that really assist us in obtaining a lot of this, of the information and the data that we need in order to report back to the client. And us also being YouTube partners, we have the ability to access the data from the creators that are within our network. And that's the great thing about also having, we have over 1,900, I think, creators within our network where we have access to all of their data, whether it be Instagram or on YouTube. So we are able to obtain, what kind of markets they're most popular in. A creator that's out of Japan, maybe his most popular market is in Indonesia, for example. So again, I think it really does go back to, I think each company, each agency is going to have their own sort of internal tools and how they do things. And I think very similar to what Sophie was saying, I think from the beginning, you just need to make it very clear what it is you want to do. What does the client want to do? Can we achieve this? Is this realistic? We're not going to sit there and be like, oh, sure, we can get you X amount of views in 2 days. It's we don't want to deliver any false promises again, right? So yeah, I think everybody, every agency, every company is going to be quite different.
On that, I'd like to change a little bit of focus to kind of industry verticals and where we think influencers best fit in terms of industry verticals. Nicole, we had a discussion about this the other day, and I just wanted to kind of share with the audience your take on the industry verticals that are going to be best matched for quick wins within influencer partnerships.
Sure. For verticals, I mean, I think if we've all worked with influencers, I think we can all agree that beauty, fashion, super quick. There are so many beauty influencers in Singapore, especially. Like, I feel like I always happen upon someone who's just like has X amount of followers, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know. But beauty, fashion for sure. A huge one for us is gaming. That's a huge one for us. I think esports in general is just such a growing, I mean, it's a sport, right? We have to call it a sport. So sports in general is already so big. Esports is even larger, and gaming for us is a really big one. But music is also a huge one for us. And I think music just travels very freely on all platforms, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Instagram. TikTok is a huge one for us. We do, out of the Philippines especially, we do a lot of campaigns for music labels that want to put their music on, let's say, a creator's dance video. I mean, if anybody has used TikTok, I think TikTok in all senses, whoever's using it, I'm sure, Sophie, if you use TikTok, you're not looking at the kids that are dancing, right? You're looking at more maybe cooking or educational things, but there are a lot of
dancing as well. It's quite an eclectic mix. My FYP can get a bit erratic sometimes, but yeah.
It's hard not
You're basically
to look at
right.
As much as you want to say, like, oh, I don't really care about the dancing, but it's kind of hard not to look at it and then kind of be like, oh, I guess I could do that. Anyway, off topic. But I think we get a lot of, one of our largest TikTok markets is in the Philippines, and we get a lot of inquiries for, I want to promote this song, and we'll basically match it with different TikTokers to do a dance for it. And it actually turns out really, I guess the metrics are pretty successful in that sense. So I guess those would be the stronger verticals. One that we are getting a lot of inquiries about recently is fintech, and we haven't been able to completely tackle it. When I say fintech, I'm things like, we have people coming to us like sort of Bitcoin related campaigns, and I think creators or the influencers that we deal with anyway seem to not be so interested. But I am seeing a lot of fintech related YouTubers coming about, giving advice, financial advice, which you invest in, things like that. So we are looking into it, but it is definitely a vertical that is a little bit tough for us to tackle at the moment, but I'm sure that it's gonna grow within the year.
Hey, Nicole, Jem here. Is there a chance for a 40-something-year-old man to revisit his early career as a music influencer? I used to get paid by labels to go to punk rock shows to hand out demos of their bands at those rock shows. Those were at age 17, 18, when you're trying to make money on the side. That was my first, I guess back then it would be the equivalent of a music influencer, right? There should be a whole bunch of demos. I would go out to, I wouldn't say, places where I shouldn't be putting up posters of bands, but I would plaster that around the walls. I checked the chat group. There's not a single police officer on this call, so I guess I'm safe to say that. But then I realized that Tara's going to post this on YouTube, so I'll run into trouble. But
again, look, platforms like Instagram, any social platform, it's a free space, right? You can do what you want. I think Raena mentioned once that anybody can be an influencer now. A doctor can now give his own advice, her own advice online, and then that person can become an influencer. So I say to anybody who's listening, if you want to do something and if you're trying to fulfill your dreams of becoming some musician or an interpretive dancer, or you want to share your art, I think it's totally fine. Look, everyone who becomes an influencer, I mean, it's all just people who wanted to become a little bit more social and kind of share what they do. And technically that's what an influencer does, right? You just create. So if you want to create content, create music, I say go for it. I'm all for it. I'd follow you.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I know one thing for sure. My wife would say that my husband's nowhere close to being a dance influencer. So Sophie, I will not be in any of your client videos. That is for sure.
I don't know. I might make an exception.
I tell you, I love this group. This group is good. Everyone's so welcoming. I will remember the two of you when I do become famous one day, someday.
That's what we like to hear.
One day.
Never forget.
So just to keep it back on track here, guys, just for a moment, as much as I'd love to see that video of you dancing, Jem, Raena, you come from a fairly diverse background when it comes to industry sectors. Based on kind of what Nicole said there, do you think there's any industries that really don't lend themselves that well to influence the tie-ups?
Actually, I think yeah. So like I think previously when we were just chatting, we talk about like influencers really can be anyone. So recently, I think even for myself, just the people that I followed like 10 years ago and the people that I follow today, it has also changed quite a lot. So obviously the fashion and beauty scene is still a very big part of social media influencing. But I think there is a lot more layers to it than before. So like when we just talk about fashion, that's like, fashion for someone who's younger and going out to work. But there's also fashion for like, pregnant moms or like moms to be and like nursing mom. And that add a whole new dimension to like that vertical in fashion. And then there's beauty, and in beauty, there's like halal beauty, there's like vegan beauty, there's clean beauty, there's Korean beauty. So I think just within each pillar, it has also developed so much. I think I used to work in the finance industry from Goldman. So I think on the fintech part, I also see a lot more of my colleagues, who are like really established wealth managers coming out to talk about these things because they're just passionate about it. And they're not really looking to earn an income, but that sharing just makes them feel really energized. So I think we're seeing more and more of such people where they are actually expert in a certain area, but just very willing to share. And in that process, maybe have like a little side income that comes from it. But that's a bonus. Yeah.
Absolutely, and dare I say that that's the ingredients to being successful in that space. You know, being authentic and interested in the topic that you talk about. I think what we find as well when we work with clients that want to be able to access people that have an audience that's slightly different to their own audience, bringing together, because we work a little bit more in corporate comms as well as consumer comms, but when we bring together people that have a strong consumer following, a specific audience group, with professionals that might have some expertise in a very specific area, you can actually kind of build that credibility between them. We found that as an interesting collaboration point. Jem, have you got any thoughts on B2B kind of initiatives when it comes to influencers?
Yeah, I think that it's a natural fit for a lot of B2C brands. And I think that the beauty of influencer marketing today has really allowed B2C brands to partner with influencers across top, middle, and bottom of the funnel in various types of initiatives and campaigns. But what I'm also really excited to see is the increased usage of influencers in B2B brands, especially if it's in the middle of the funnel, to try to drive credibility around a product or solution that can solve and impact a real problem. I find that is something that we're definitely seeing growing in recent years. And I like the fact that a lot of B2B brands have also embraced working with content creators to kind of tell complex scientific stories into something that's relatable and human, because again, you know, a lot of these B2B brands struggle to tell a really meaningful, impactful type of story. So I would say that's, to me, it's influencer marketing as well, right? When content, when brands recognize that they can't really tell the story about impact and benefits in an authentic way, and working with content creators to bring that to life. And I see that working really in the healthcare space, you know, where it's about core partnerships, or even in the B2B tech or B2B software space, you know, and I think that will continue to grow. I think B2B tech and B2B health would be probably another sector that we're seeing growing fast as the months come by.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm just doing a quick time check. We've got 5 minutes left of this discussion. I just thought I'd touch on podcasts. It's a trending topic for many of us in marketing and communications. And I just thought I'd ask you guys if you feel like the connection between podcasts and influencers is a strong one for brands to consider. Sophie, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think big time, basically. It's like, I think some of the people with the biggest spending power are listening to podcasts, basically. I think there's loads of data that backs that up, and I'm not even going to attempt to give any false ones, but podcasts they've been climbing in popularity in the last 2 years, 5 years, and with a whole host of different topic types. And whether or not a podcast host then becomes an influencer, that's one route, or influencers are now starting their own podcasts, which are becoming incredibly successful, that's another route. Even so far as like guest appearances or interviews on very popular podcasts, that seems like a no-brainer to me, particularly as a brand. If you wanted to, apart from the typical, I guess, classic commercial spots that we hear on podcasts where the host will read out 30 seconds of product placement. But the other things that brands can do, which are like maybe sponsoring a mini series and doing that in collaboration with an influencer, or being associated with interesting ideas and thought is only going to add value to a brand. And that's why people go to podcasts. It's to grow, it's for personal growth. It's to become more self-actualized in theory. Maybe it's to listen to something that's more story-led. Maybe it's to find some respite from the drudge of life at the moment, where lots of comedy podcasts are extremely popular. So yeah, I think if you're not thinking about podcasts in creative ways, then it's very remiss as if you're a brand, for sure.
I agree. Okay. We are just going to do a call out for any Q&A that anyone in the audience might have. Feel free to put those questions into the chat box and we'll address them now. In the meantime, we'll continue to talk just for a few more minutes. Tara, unless you have anything else you want to add. No. Okay. Raena, quick one for you. When it comes to podcasts, obviously, oh, here we go. We've got some questions. Here we go. Okay. It's a question for you, Raena. Could you tell us a bit more about how style theory conveyed its story to influencers when starting out? Was it all earned, or were there some paid components?
So right at the beginning, that was 2016. You know, I didn't come from like a marketing background, didn't really thought that, you know, influencer was part of marketing. How we engage them was just through friends. And then we just know that, okay, this person seems to be quite credible in the fashion scene. Let's talk to the person. We told our story of why we decided to do the things that we want to do. I think both me and my co-founder, we sort of left our corporate jobs to build this, right? And there's a lot of passion behind what we want to deliver. So when we told our stories to the influencers, I think for those who actually stand behind the same vision that we had, they were very willing to do it for free. So we started out with free and just giving them sponsorship on the product itself for them to test it out. And then also telling them that, you know, whatever that you feel about the product, like tell it to us genuinely, because we're at such an early stage that we just want to make sure that the product gets improved on day by day. So it's not about delivering the perfect product. And I think in our communications to our newsletter and stuff like that, it has always been that angle where, hey guys, you know, let's do this together. Let's build this ecosystem together, because the future of fashion doesn't exist today. So you guys are part of it. And I think that conversation really helped us to get a lot of free endorsement at the very beginning. But I think at some point we realized that they are, this is a career for some of them. And I think they are really bringing in true value to the business. And we wanted to make sure that that is also compensated fairly. So for different kind of like skills that they bring to the table, then we'll also discuss remuneration from there. But at the very beginning, it was free.
Okay, great. And we have an interesting question around the ability for social media influencers to drive brand awareness. And if we think that actually at some point they could replace your traditional journalists and conventional media outlets. Jim, do you want to have a chat on that one?
Of course, the PR guy has to handle this, right? Look, here's what I think, right? I think that there's a great opportunity for them to coexist. Journalists today have also been asked and been forced to think as social media reporters as well, when they start thinking about their story, thinking about putting that story out there on social media and making sure that they get direct reader feedback, right? And I think that that really makes them think about this, making sure that their stories are well researched, well checked, and then puts their pieces out there. And I think that that's really the intersection of where I see today newsmakers can be influencers as well, based on their knowledge and their ability to write things. I don't think that they can really, I don't think influencers can replace, long story short, I think that they coexist. And more importantly, I do think that you're looking at two types of organizations or two types of industry. One that's recent conversations in Singapore about regulated press and how the media is being regulated as well, right? So we all know that there's a certain level of things that most news outlets can or cannot say. And then on the other side, there are influencers who are not so regulated. They're regulated by the things that they represent and the brands that they work with as well. So there's a little bit more to push the investigative journalism side of them or the things that they are passionate about as well. I think we need to be able to see both of them for all the good that they bring and to avoid nitpicking on the negatives that they bring. I think they all have a great way to tell stories and tell things that we find useful and beneficial.
I agree. I think from my perspective, you know, when we look at people and platforms of influence, you know, journalists have been those originals that were kind of using their voice to convey a message about something that wasn't owned by themselves. And I believe that the voices, regardless of the platform in which they connect with the audience on, are super important. And people evolve. They'll use different platforms to convey their message. But essentially, anyone that wants to have an opinion on something will develop themselves into a person of influence if they have an audience big enough to listen.
But Matt, just one more thing, which I think also it's a good thing to recognize that readers and audiences have been more discerning than ever before, right? The ability to understand what is news, most of the time understand what is fake news, most of the time being able to understand what is inauthentic storytelling from an influencer, and it's real storytelling as well. So if we look at it, at least in this region, again, at the audience that will consume both sides of the content, I think that they are a lot more sophisticated and discerning than ever before. I think there's a lot of education in the past, either by governments or schools, to help people discern between fake news, real news, or news that gems just, the stuff your uncle just forwards on WhatsApp, and how real is that? But yeah, I think, and that's a good thing, right? I think it's just a great ecosystem and vibrancy to help both sides, whether it's newsmakers or influencers, kind of grow in their craft.
Nicole and Sophie, are you seeing any influencers come into your mix that are from backgrounds that you wouldn't expect normally from an influencer, whether it be journalism or whether it be other things?
Well, I mean, I think this kind of touches upon what we said before, which is that anyone can be an influencer. And yeah, as new things start emerging, and yeah, like Bitcoin and Dogecoin and whatever, there will be influencers that are just all about that. So yeah, you get very niche people that come up, and actually they're the most exciting because they have something to say that's very unique and very different, and that's very compelling for an agency like us and our clients, because their point of view is going to be very, very different to what the current space is saying, or what the current influencer landscape is saying. So that's really exciting for us. So yes, and yeah, I think it's only a good thing. I desperately want more of it. I think we're in a world where our social feeds are very overly saturated with not just sponsored content, but with influencers popping up, new influencers all the time. And our job, our responsibility as an agency is to really pick out the ones that do have something to say and that aren't, they don't have influencer in their bio, for example, which that's a red flag for me. Like I want someone that has something to say, there's something to share with the world, a different point of view, they're creative, and they're not just in it to earn money. Like you can quite easily see that. And yeah, when it's a very unique and a weird and new thing that they're doing, then I'm all for it. Like I'll try, and if I can shoehorn, and actually opposites can attract really well. If you have someone, I don't know, like someone that's doing woodland creations in New Zealand that wants to work with, I don't know, like an electronics brand, and you match up like the building or the innovation within the two, whilst they seem completely miles apart, the creative line that you can find there is one that's really unique and really different, and it's going to stand out from the crowd. Then that's what we look for. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with Sophie on that. I mean, the world is made up of so many different types of people, and I think sometimes we forget that what works and what doesn't. Of course, the verticals that have been successful, like beauty or fashion, those are easy. But I mean, a really great example we have. We manage he is the largest TikToker in Japan. And if you watch his content, and I think we did talk about this, I was trying to figure out a way to explain what his content is. So I actually asked my Japan team, and the way that you would describe it is it's funny experiments. So his name is Junya, and he has like 30 million TikTok followers. And actually we also manage his YouTube channel, and he's I think in like 4 months, he has like 8 million subscribers on YouTube, and his content is so ridiculous. And I watch it, and I'm like, I don't get it, but I want to watch it because it's just it's strange. If you guys are curious, look up Junya. But it just shows you that so many people are watching such ridiculous content sometimes, and either it could be educational or it could be really compelling or really authentic. And I think what Sophie was also saying, it's always such a gem for us whenever we get to work with clients and connect them with creators, that you make something that is really like heartfelt and compelling, and it just connects with people. And then we have some of these guys that are kind of like, okay, it's just like really funny, light, snackable content. And I think
it's kind of what the world needs right now. You kind of just need to sit back and watch, because things around the world are just a little bit messy, right? So I think anybody can kind of just do it, and anybody can be a creator. And if you want to do it, then you should do it.
I tell you what, Nicole, I went through that Junior rabbit hole the other day after we spoke. I started watching all his stuff.
I'm glad. So are you a fan? Have we converted you?
I am, and you must even funnier. I consume all of it on my wife's profile, so I'm sure she's going to get a lot of Junior content is going to be surfacing.
Her algorithm is going to be interesting.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, because
don't try it at home. Don't try it at home. I'm serious. The stuff that he does, it looks crazy, but I mean, I don't know what he's like in person. Maybe he's a super serious guy. You never know.
But it also just shows that there's something for everyone, right? And even though it might not make sense to us, like the numbers speak for themselves. And so it's working for a lot of people. So yeah, and that's also another really, really good thing that we try and explain to our clients as well, is like, just because you don't get it doesn't mean that it's not going to work. And that's also like the biggest space, like that's where we need to give them more creative freedom, because like, as I say, the numbers speak for themselves. And in like a wild card instance like that, like to work with someone like Junior, just see how it goes. Just what's what you're going to lose? Not much.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm totally with you on that, Sophie.
Cool. Okay, we have a couple of questions around measurement. So Raena, I'd like to kind of ask you, when you're running your campaigns and working with your influencers, what metrics in particular are you looking for as an indication that they're doing all the right things and they're going to help you drive your brand forward?
So I think it really depends on which part of the funnel we engage them for. In our own experience, I think it's quite unrealistic to really work with a lot of them on bottom funnel. It's doable, but it's just not kind of like where we find KOLs, influencers best at. So we work with them mostly on the top and middle funnel. So for the top funnel, it's about like the awareness. So usually we measure like the reach, social mentions, social sentiment. So those are some of the things that we will measure when we think about like reach. And then I think when we think about like, say, the middle funnel, it's really, say, for example, we have an event. How many people can they bring down to the event? How many people can they get to download the app? So those are some of the metrics that we will place on the influencers. Yeah.
Great. And anyone else? Is there anything outside of that that we're looking out for to indicate performance?
No, I mean, I think it goes back to just, I mean, there are loads of things that you can look at. I agree in all of those quantitative metrics that Raena just said. We look at those as well. We also, definitely look at audience sentiment. That's a big one, like really diving deep into what the comments are saying. Are they positive? Are they negative? And also how many of those comments are about the brand? Because what sometimes can happen is, you get lots of comments that just say like, you're so cute, or like just like something completely irrelevant to the brand. And obviously what we want and what the brand wants is for someone to say like, oh my God, like if it's Style Theory, I love Style Theory, or I've just signed up to Style Theory, like can't wait to try it out. Like those are the golden nuggets that you look for. So yeah, it's tracking like that kind of thing. And I think, if you start to find, and Raena as well, I'm sure with your ambassadors and who you're working with more longer term, the ones that are getting more of those kinds of comments are who you would want to work with longer term, rather than, the kind of more, a love heart emoji or something, which doesn't, yes, it's a comment, but like, what's it going to bring you? So we also look at that.
Yeah, definitely. And I love it when they actually discuss the real issue on the comments as well. So like not just the for the brand, but I think like really discussing about like the vision that we had. So they'll like talk about fashion sustainability and really discussing it in depth, asking the right questions. I think those are really like the golden nuggets too. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And Raena, do you leave the response to those comments completely free for your influencers to kind of respond as they would like to, or do you work with them on key things that you need to mention in those responses?
No, we usually leave it up to them because I think it's their platform. They know the way that they need to respond. But more importantly, it's also a way that we see whether the influencers truly know our story. If we see like some responses are not like the best, then we'll let the influencer know, oh yeah, actually the company is also doing this, doing that. It's kind of like a two-way street, and you just kind of like get closer over time.
I think comments is a extremely powerful place to play, both for brands and influencers. Prior to joining H&K, I was at the Walt Disney Company, and when we really lent into kind of community management, when we were talking to Star Wars fans, Marvel fans, Pixar fans about what it was they liked about a specific trailer or character, the algorithm just went through the roof, and we were just seeing so much more reach and engagement as a result of it that I feel like comments are somewhat underrated in terms of importance when brands consider social media. Okay, well, I think we're almost there now. We've got one more question. As we see influencers like Elon Musk being able to disrupt an entire industry via one single tweet, what do you see as the future risks of influencer marketing? Oh, I'm going to put that one on someone.
Is Elon Musk an influencer, technically? Can we call him that?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yeah. He has a lot of power. So let's...
And a lot
I
to
reckon
say.
So, yeah. Yeah. I think the one for me, which isn't necessarily, actually kind of goes against the Elon Musk thing, or maybe they work in tandem, but I think it's fatigue, it's audience fatigue. And something I mentioned earlier is it's just our platforms are becoming very oversaturated, and with bad influencer content and bad influencer sponsored content. And that's why I really do believe that the agency side in particular has a real responsibility to cut through that crap and make it, if it is going to be an Elon Musk kind of disruptor kind of moment. In creative spaces, you always hear the word disruptor being knocked about, but we all want to be disruptive and thumb stopping content. And I think whilst it can be a bit cliche, it's very important to do that. Like, we can't be complacent, because the risk is that, consumers are already, you can see they're getting a bit bored, or maybe, they feel like, we have to cut through that, basically. So if we can disrupt and have all those buzzwords at the forefront, then we should. But yeah, we can't just keep going with the bad sponsored content, because it's so boring. It's boring for us, it's boring for the talent can't grow, the brands can't get much out of it. And I think it isn't that triangle of doing things fast, cheap and good. You can only do 2 out of those 3, and I think lots of people are just doing the fast and cheap side of things, which is why you need a very good partner, a good agency partner, to help you do it better.
I think this is a great question, right? Just to build on Sophie's point, I think that they also provides brands the opportunity to really start thinking about people that can, what these people, individuals like Elon Musk, can say that will impact their industries as well, right? I don't think brands give enough credit to these global thought leaders and really pay enough attention to what they say and what they feel about the future of certain industries. And I think that this shows that, there are some things you want to keep, that listening, like better word, listening, and to a certain region that you're operating. But there are some things that are going to be discussed at the global level. You need to be able to understand and listen to some of these thought leaders as well, right? So, Sophie, I agree with your point around fatigue, but I also see this as, in addition to that, is about opportunity, right? And I like to look at it as an opportunity for us to think about what content we can create on behalf of our clients, or partnering with them, right? I think that's what we're all here for, right?
Yeah,
getting excited about the work and trying to push the agenda a little more, trying to push smarter work that we can deliver for our clients. So
yeah, smarter work, more creative, working with wild card kind of talent as well, like we talked about, just doing things that are different. And I completely agree, it is a big opportunity, but we just need to grab it with both hands.
Yep. And if it means managing a 40-something-year-old music influencer who doesn't dance, so be it. But
so be it. It's not too late,
It's not
Jeremy.
too late.
It's never too late.
So really, you
Yeah.
can always give me a call, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Seriously. We
See?
both work.
Connections.
So
What
if I
is?
get fired from my job, the two of you will be the first two that I'm going to call.
Yeah, done. Consider it done.
So we have another question here, which I think is quite an interesting one. I think related to what we were discussing earlier about brand personas. And the question is, how would we help brands to grow their own influencer persona? Raena, I guess that would be a good one for you to answer in the beginning, and then we can move it around the team here.
I'm not sure how to help a brand grow. I think on our end, it's we know where we're heading towards. I think we have a vision of where we want to go. And I think in that process, we found influencers who genuinely believe in the story of why we started and where we want to get to. And I think from there onwards, we start to notice that, it's a lot of trial and error for us actually, because there wasn't a formula given to us at that time. So we noticed that, okay, the influencers that work for us better are tend to be aged from this age to that age. And they also tend to be more stable in their job, or they have kind of like a stable lifestyle, or they believe in certain things within their lives. So whether they believe in sustainable living, or they believe in conscious consumption, or they're very discerning with the way that they actually vote with their money. So, and then from there onwards, we start identifying such characteristics, and then using that to identify future influencers that we actually work with. Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the brands themselves having their own sort of social following and building their own persona, do you believe that there's sort of opportunities to brands to become influencers themselves as well?
Oh, I think that has been a very debated topic within the company, because I don't really like to be on the front of the brand, but I think at one point the market really wanted a lot of transparency behind who built the brand, who's the co-founder, what's their story. So I actually had to go in front of cameras and stuff like that to tell that story, and in some sense be that influencer for our brand. And I was very, very uncomfortable with it. So I think over the long run, we also started to identify like, okay, maybe certain things I could do to tell why we started and where we're heading, because that's an area that I'm comfortable in. But I'm not comfortable in like styling people, or like, doing a lot more other things that a lot of other influencers can. So our strategy actually start to combine certain talent out there that could actually help the brand to grow, while still utilizing me in some ways to actually talk more about why we are doing the things that we are doing. Yeah.
That makes sense. Nicole, any thoughts on how brands can evolve from being brands into influencers themselves?
I guess, very similarly to Raena, I don't think brands ever want to be influencers themselves per se. They do. We get a lot of clients that are like, oh, I really want to raise my amount of followers on my Instagram account, and they think it's like magic sometimes. And I think very similarly to creators, I think it's consistency. I think if you are constantly, diligently putting up content that is relatable, that, you're finding a community that's going to really get your brand. And I think very similarly to what Style Theory is doing, you guys have made a very clear brand message of what you want to do. Sustainable fashion, you guys, you don't need to spend the money on buying clothes that maybe in a few years you might not use. You can always return them or whatever. And I think that if you have that clear message and that consistency, which is what we always try to say to our clients as well, you got to be consistent. If you're, if you're kind of changing your identity every few months, and then trying to go for one creator and then doing another creator, I want to do beauty creators now, I want to do gaming creators now, it's going to be really messy. So I think if you're pretty sure about who your vision and mission is, and you kind of do a consistent sort of posting every week, even if you do it you can even do a YouTube channel if you like, but if you're consistent with that, people will notice you, and then people will start, kind of word of mouth sharing that, I think. And that consistency, I think, is just really important.
Just
Nicole, this is what we talked about early on as well, right? So, sorry, Sophie, to cut you
go.
off, but it's what we all started the session. It's consistency is one, but being authentic with the stories as well, right? I think that's equally important, which we all talk about. It's almost like I see, to answer this question, it's kind of like a 3-step process, right? One is you need to, in channels where you need to engage in, you need to engage by the rules of the channel to talk about it in a meaningful way and be real about it, right? Second level is, you need to tell that real story that is consistent and authentic to the audience. And sometimes, recognizing that on certain platforms, audience only want to hear certain kind of things and they don't want to hear about promotional stuff, right? And third is, like any conversation between friends and families, what are you trying to do in that conversation? Are you trying to build organizations and build industries? Are you going to tear people down? I think when you add all those 3 things, right? Consistency, authenticity, and then as well as your value in these conversations, I think that then, with a very discerning audience as they continue to grow, I think that's a combination of things that will help a brand grow into more of a thought leader, right? In this case, I would assume an influencer persona would kind of mean like a thought leader in that space, but that's how I read the question. Sorry, Sophie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say that I agree with what you guys have said, actually. I think it is definitely rare for a brand to want to take that part, but the one example that I am thinking of that I think has done really, really well is a publisher called The Cut. I don't know if any of you follow them, but they clearly have one person that is writing their captions on Instagram, and it's a very specific, very unique tone of voice and point of view, and it's different. It cuts through a lot of the other publishers that you might have on your Instagram, and they cover news as well as fashion, lifestyle, other things. But that for me is probably one really good example of a brand being an influencer, and I think it comes down to that very specific and, as you said, consistent tone of voice and voice that comes across in their captions and content. So it can be done, but I agree. Consistency, a very clear tone of voice, and having one person behind all those captions is just one very easy thing that you can do. But would urge anyone to follow The Cut and have a look at what I'm talking about if you don't already.
Absolutely agree. I think The Cut's good. That's the person behind The Cut, and the other person I think is going to be a great voice is that lady who does the voiceover for The Circle. Host for the Netflix show. I love her. She has a good point of view on a lot of things, and I love for her to write my next speech.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be. I think publishers do it quite well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. And massive thank you to all of you for participating wholeheartedly in this discussion, and to all the audience for tuning in and for the questions. I guess all that's left to say is stay tuned for the next PRCA topic of discussion. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Safe. See ya.
Safe indeed.
Thank you, everyone. So we're supposed to look at the camera until cut, right?
It's what waiting for.
All right, take care, guys. Have a good one. See you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.